Jim Finch's daily newscast was recorded live in front of a studio of cats. Good morning and welcome to the second edition of the Auditing and Insanity Newscast. I'm Jim Finch and I'm your host tonight for our continuing coverage of the First Amendment auditing world. Obviously, two of our news stories have been directly impacted by today's news that Jose Chile DeCastro is now about to be free. The surprise verdict in the appeal shocked everyone, and frankly, a lot of things have to be moved up, as DeCastro will be back on the street within the next 24 hours. Please bear with us as we get through the first two articles. We do have the full story on his appeal, but you've got to sit through the soup and salad first, folks, to get to the meaty good stuff. Or the smelly old shoe. Not sure which is which today. With that, let's get to today's news. GoFundMe, DeCastro Wins Big. Jose Chile DeCastro had a great day on Tuesday, bringing in $50 in donation to his legal aid fund, Donation Fund, Help People Fund, and crushing its nearest competitor, our own Ongoing Expenses Fund, by a 5-to-1 margin. It was the third win in a row for DeCastro, as word is spreading that he will soon be out of jail and back on the streets of Las Vegas, should he decide not to flee from a second case in Las Vegas for obstruction that goes to trial in August. DeCastro is currently in the Clark County, Nevada Detention Center on charges of obstructing an officer and interfering in a crime scene. The August case is again for obstruction, as he walked through crime scene tape and got into an altercation with police who were handling a fatal traffic accident. The YouTuber was arrested in that case after refusing to identify himself and leave the scene. It was his second arrest in Las Vegas for obstruction, and while the jurisdiction was different, a conviction would see him possibly land himself right back in the Clark County Detention Center in August, since the two jurisdictions share the same lockup facility. DeCastro has pledged a series of lawsuits against Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman, who sentenced him to jail earlier this year, and has threatened to file against Zimmerman's bailiffs, guards at the prison, the prosecutor in the case, and others involved in his current sentence. However, he has shown in the past that he will flee from areas when he feels that his life is in danger. This was on display in Ironton, Ohio, where he technically is still a fugitive from justice, as a warrant is still active for his arrest from fleeing from charges in the state. It will be interesting to see if DeCastro does flee, if his supporters will continue to send money to fund his possible flight from justice. Two of DeCastro's 3 GoFundMe accounts remain inactive, and the third only seems to be receiving donations since it has been semi-promoted on his daily YouTube channel addresses. DeCastro is currently scheduled to be released from jail on July 28, 2024, with 1 day removed from his sentence yesterday for apparent good behavior. DeCastro himself estimates his release at July 23rd, 24th, or July 25th, 2024. In his most recent video, he promised fire and brimstone, but also a different approach to things, as he said he must establish himself in government, as that is where the power is. What changes to his approach he was talking about remain unclear, but he will need immediate funding for whatever he decides to do, and his GoFundMe campaigns will remain key to paying his massive legal debts as he moves forward. As always, if you'd like to keep us reporting news stories every day, we do have a GoFundMe of our own located in the scroll that's passing now. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing news stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. DeCastro appeal hearing today. It was a mix of emotions over the past 2 days for Jose Chile DeCastro as he released 2 jailhouse videos to the public promising change, hope, and continuation of vendettas when he is released from jail later this month. DeCastro is due in court today for the appeal of charges against him for obstructing an officer and interfering in a traffic stop from a March 2023 arrest. DeCastro has been in the Clark County Detention Center since March 2024 and has distributed his jail video addresses every few days after being incarcerated. In the first of 2 videos released on Tuesday, he indicated that he believed he had an ironclad case, as one of the 2 laws he was accused of breaking had been heard by the Nevada State Supreme Court and upheld as constitutional. but he claimed that the finding by the Nevada State Supreme Court held that obstruction was a physical act and an intentional one at that, despite his own comments on his live stream that he staged the March 2023 incident with police in order to sue the LVMPD for millions of dollars. The YouTuber is claiming that he had no intention of interfering or obstructing in the incident. He also stated that he offered no resistance at all during the incident, as he claimed resisting was a physical act, and his refusal to comply with the orders of the arresting officer was not considered resisting arrest. DeCastro also is now claiming in both videos that Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman had previously researched his case, as she had seen videos on his YouTube channel and used his anti-police statements as motivation to unjustly send him to jail as punishment for his free speech. Adding a new twist in the second of the new videos, DeCastro now claimed that journalists are now different from regular citizens, as they have special powers and treatment under the law. Apparently, as a self-proclaimed journalist, he now has the ability to enter crime scenes and record, talk back to police, and be allowed special knowledge and rights that the public does not generally have. DeCastro is also leaning towards the special power of politics, as he plans to continue his quest for any sort of position in government, stepping away from his sole focus on the governorship of a major state. He said he needed to get his foot in the door to achieve power. The YouTuber promised major changes to the criminal justice system, with constitutional amendments coming that would strip immunity from the police, judges, and presidents. He said he wanted to see Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman lose her job based on this and be fined in civil court and be tried and found guilty of the apparent criminal conspiracy to put him in jail. Perhaps hedging his bets on today's appeals hearing, DeCastro announced that his criminal attorney, Christopher Oram, has been retained for a possible appeal to the Nevada State Supreme Court, should today's hearings go badly for DeCastro. DeCastro's appeal hearing is set for 9 a.m. Pacific Time today in Las Vegas. DeCastro conviction overturned. Judge Michelle Levitt granted Jose Chile DeCastro's appeal today, overturning convictions of obstructing an officer and interfering in a traffic stop, citing First Amendment issues. The judge found that DeCastro's conduct was protected by the First Amendment and that DeCastro would be freed immediately. Because the interference issue was overturned, the subsequent resisting arrest charge was also dropped. Deputy District Attorney Alexander Chen put up what has been criticized as a half-hearted effort to defend the lower court case. He did not argue defense attorney Christopher Oram's points and essentially conceded multiple points to Oram through his inaction. Judge Levitt seemed to be swayed by evidence that DeCastro had indeed backed up multiple feet when told to do so. She showed concern when the arresting officer, Brandon Bork, did not specify how many feet he wanted DeCastro to back up. She also seemed concerned that there was no right to privacy in public, as Officer Bork stated that the woman involved in the traffic stop deserved privacy as reasoning for his actions with DeCastro. DeCastro had indicated that it would take up to 24 hours to be freed from his jail in his earlier jailhouse addresses. In an update to our opinion from earlier articles, including the GoFundMe article from earlier today, we're revising our opinions. It is our feeling that DeCastro will now be emboldened by the ruling and will not attempt to leave the Las Vegas area. With a win under his belt, he'll be more apt to stay and fight the charges, again, in our expressed opinion, when he faces separate charges next month in Las Vegas City Court. This is a breaking news story. Josh Abrams, James Freeman take on Mini-Putin. YouTubers Josh Abrams and James Freeman are currently in Battle Creek, Michigan, showing their support for YouTuber 68 Shots, who was embroiled in a conflict with a neighbor they have nicknamed Mini-Putin. 68 Shots, real name Justin Shots, is engaged in a dispute with a neighbor over access to a small dock on his property. The two have been in conflict over the issue for over a year now, with Shots claiming that the neighbor has influence with the police that has seen multiple charges of disruption and abuse dropped against the neighbor, while Shots has been arrested in retaliation for speaking out. Freeman and Abrams, who are now associated through a loose group of auditors, claim that they are in Battle Creek to support Shots in his continuing altercations with the man. In reality, they found a never-ending source of new videos, as the man is easily provoked by both staged and non-staged incidents, and is the source of content for their channels as police are hesitant to arrest the man. Both YouTubers had versions of the same video from Tuesday. They drove to the man's property and parked outside his home. Police were already on the scene, and Abrams can be heard asking someone off camera if it was all right to park on the easement in front of the property. The property turned out to be owned by the man they call Mini-Putin, who began screaming at Abrams to move his truck off of his property. Abrams answered back that they parked on a public easement and had every right to park there. The two exchanged threats, and Abrams assured the man that he was not afraid to become physical with him should he take physical action against Abrams. Both Freeman and Abrams were polite in their interactions with the police on scene, though both had flare-ups screaming at the police that the man's actions were their fault for coddling him and allowing him to act negatively. To some observers, it appeared contrived, as they were manipulating the officers into taking action against the man. After the event wrapped up without arrest, Abrams live-streamed from his hotel room to assure his fans that no arrests had been made and rumors that he and Freeman had been jailed were false. He thanked his fans for buying things off of his baby registry, as he recently announced that his new wife was pregnant with their first child. Abrams wrapped up the live stream quickly after the hotel room phone rang, thanking his fans for their support and promising that he'd be staying with the story for the near future. Benson rages over response to dispatcher investigation. Rean Benson lashed out on her YouTube community page this week after a response to an inquiry about the actions of the Englewood, Colorado emergency dispatchers was answered in a fashion that she claims shows bias against her. Last month, Benson said she found a homeless man semi-conscious in a convenience store parking lot. She called for an ambulance, but apparently refused to give the dispatcher any information about the homeless man's condition or engage with the dispatchers. The dispatcher sent a police car over to check on the man's condition, who then determined that there was need for medical treatment for the man and summoned the ambulance. Benson claimed that she was treated differently than anyone else, as she is currently in a dispute with the dispatchers after a dispatcher appeared on the Frauditor Troll show when Troll aired a phone conversation between he and a dispatcher. The phone call may have led to the charges being pressed against Benson for filming herself harassing an Allied security guard at the Englewood Public Library. The YouTuber demanded an immediate inquiry into her alleged mistreatment by the dispatchers in her bi-weekly address to the Englewood City Council as part of the public's feedback session of the last City Council meeting. One of the City Council members, Rita Russell, followed up with a request for more information on the situation. Benson released the response Russell received during her investigation. The response indicated that the dispatcher did not have enough information from Benson to determine if the man needed medical treatment. Benson refused to share medical information about the situation, and police were dispatched to determine what was going on. Despite Benson's claims that it took a great deal of time for the man to receive treatment, it is noted in the call log that the call happened at 12:34 p.m. Police were dispatched at 12:38 p.m., arriving on scene by 12:40 p.m. They then determined that the man needed medical treatment, and the ambulance arrived on scene at 12:44. Critics of Benson note that while the incident happened, it was also used in Benson's continuing campaign against the city of Englewood and Police Chief Sam Watson, who recently announced his retirement. Benson allegedly has a history of staging incidents in order to further her goals against the city. Those same critics point out that Benson recently read an email that she previously claimed Kate Peters supporters sent her, threatening her and Christopher Denver Metro Audit's Cordova's lives at an Englewood City Council meeting. She made an effort to blame the letter on her recent conflicts with the council. The matter was quietly dropped after her actions were mentioned in the press. The response to Russell was authored by Deputy Chief of Police Vance Fender, who presumably will take over from Watson when Watson leaves his position. She called Fender a moron and the next chief idiot in her statement. We will continue to monitor Benson's continued actions against the city of Englewood. Flashback, July 10th, 2023. AFA DMA Harass the Librarian Tour continues. Josh Accountability for All Abrams and Christopher Denver Metro Audits Cordova's Harass the Librarian Tour continued on Monday as they visited the Whipple Free Library in New Boston, New Hampshire. DMA's live stream started with AFA engaging a police sergeant after a patron had called the police on the pair when the patron felt uncomfortable with the interaction between the two and the library staff members working at the welcome desk. The men questioned why the police responded to the call when the library knew that they were First Amendment auditors and the library staff was trained to handle them through directives from their insurance companies. Abrams made the case that since they knew there was no crime happening, the police should have not responded to the call. Explaining that police were required to come based on the report they had, the police sergeant asked the men to consider the incident from the viewpoint of others and indicated that the library staff had an obligation to protect their patrons. This appeared to have angered both auditors, with DMA stating that the case of Castle Rock versus Gonzalez ruled that police had no obligation to protect anyone. The officer countered that his oath stated that he was obligated to protect the lives of everyone in the state. Upon hearing this, AFA changed tactics and began to claim that the state model of New Hampshire, live free or die, was false since he was not being presented the opportunity to live free. As the police left, both men engaged with library staff, inquiring about a woman they call Scary Mary, who had negatively engaged with them before the police arrived. AFA then called the patron who called the police a traitor to the country and promised he would get the police report and expose the person as a hater of liberty and freedom. When library staff asked both men what platforms the men were airing their live streams on, DMA and AFA refused to answer, stating that they simply forgot which platforms they streamed on. This is the second live stream from the library on the Harass the Librarian Tour, with Abrams promising full videos of the incident to begin airing in the future. Will tickle our toes and punch us in the nose. Today was a blow to everyone. Obviously, Jose Chile DeCastro's freedom has changed a lot of things. While DeCastro was set to be freed in 18 days, the standard thinking was that there was little chance that DeCastro's conviction would be overturned. But here we stand. DeCastro is about to be a free man. His version of the Knight of Long Knives will probably be coming for his enemies. DeCastro had promised fire and brimstone in previous statements from jail, and we were sure that they were coming, but a newly motivated DeCastro may change things up and take direct action against his enemies sooner rather than later. Lawsuits inbound. Giddy up. With that, have a safe evening, folks. We're out of here. Good night.